if you notice, this title of this lesson is our words from Jesus Christ. I am with you always. Because this particular lesson is a lesson in the history of the church, but it's for one lesson. It's really, really, really short. Now, why is this important? Why is it important to know the history of the Catholic Church? We are in the year of faith, and does the history of the church really have anything to do with faith? Is it important at all? You know, you might ask this question. Actually, the answer is yes, it is very important. Actually, there are people, there are Catholics, who know the very important things about the faith. They know the creed, for example. They know about the sacraments. They know all the 10 Commandments, and also prayer. And yet, they may still have doubts about the Catholic Church. And why is that? Many times the reason is a historical reason. You know, they've heard something about the church and they said, oh, why is it that in the 13th century there was this, in the 15th century there was that? So how can the church be of Christ if it's like that, you know? Many of these ideas, they have conceptions. So sometimes they are based on facts. There are certain facts that happen, but they don't know the real background behind it. So in the year of faith, it will help a lot if we got to know better the history of the Catholic Church. At least read that little introduction on the history of the Catholic Church. Now, as in point number 1 of the lesson, it says here, before Jesus Christ ascended into heaven, he instructed his apostles, go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Son of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always to the close of the age. I am with you always. So he reassured them of his constant presence, and moreover he promised them that the Holy Spirit will be with them. You remember in the Last Supper, he will give you another counselor and a paraclete. Now, there's something we should, when we speak about the history of the church, there's something we should take into account, and we should always keep in mind that the story of the people which God had called together is an intertwining of the human and the divine. On the one hand, we find us, human beings, and on the other, God himself. So we need to remember the history of the church. In other words, because the church is composed of human beings, sinners. So you don't expect it to be perfect, you know, that the whole thing is perfect. On the other hand, because God guides it, the Holy Spirit is with the church, and Jesus Christ is stays with the church, then in spite of those dark moments probably, you know, or in spite of the sins of the members of the church, still the Lord himself will take care of guiding it. And also there's one thing we should remember. The church, after all, is not for saints, in the sense that we're in the church not because we think we are saints. We are in the church because we know we are sinners. And so we come here to be cleansed, to be purified, and then to be made holy through the church. But in that process, of course, that's the process of becoming holy is a long process, and we make mistakes and we fall, etc. So that happens. You see that in the church. Now, we can see certain features of the church that Jesus Christ founded. I point out here 4. The first is that it's Catholic. That's the Catholic Church, since her founding by Jesus Christ, has retained the same faith and teaching, the same sacraments, the same hierarchy, while welcoming a diversity of cultures and races from all the corners of the earth. So, the same belief. Although that belief is put into practice in many different ways, depending on the culture. And second, the church always has been missionary, and this is something that Pope Francis has been speaking about, to go out, making use of every historical event or phenomenon. And third, that we see in the church fruits of holiness. There are persons of all conditions, social standing, becoming holy, becoming saints. And the fourth is there is a capacity for recovery. The crisis that human weakness brought upon the church did not deter her from rising again and recover her vitality. So you see this throughout the history of the church. Okay, so these are the four things, four features that we find in this history. There's unity in time and space. There's missionary action in all the centuries of Christianity. You find fruits of holiness and also the capacity for recovery. Now, before we go on, at the end of the notes, at the bottom of the page, you will see there a link to a fourth session discussion, right? If you click on that link, then you will see 4 classes I gave before, these 4 classes. But in the homepage, there are a few videos, and those videos are very helpful to understand the history of the church. Okay. Now, I think you remember, I don't know if you remember the history of salvation before the birth of Jesus Christ. Basically, actually, we know only the dates from the time of Abraham. Right? Abraham is around 1,800 before Christ, 1,800 years before Christ. Right? Abraham, and then the Exodus. So Moses brings the people out of Egypt around 1,300. So 500 years after Abraham. And then David's time is around 1000 BC. So 300 years after the Exodus. And then 300 years after that, the people were sent to exile in Babylon. Right? And then fast forward to 0, which is Jesus Christ. Now, from Jesus Christ's time to the year 2000, you can roughly divide it into quarters, at least as markers for orienting yourself in the history of the church. So, first 500 years of the church, around the year 500, was the invasion of the Germanic tribes into the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire collapses, and the Germanic tribes from the north come, and that was what people call the start of the Dark Ages. People call it, in general, the Dark Ages. Not people in the church, but people in general, historians. 580. 1080, the Eastern Church separates from Rome. So big split, right? So to be exact, 1054. So from that time on until now, they are still separated from us. But there's only one thing that's missing, which is the recognition of the Holy Father. That they recognize the Pope. Just looks very simple and very complicated. And then 500 years again, the Protestant revolt. So 1517 to be exact. Martin Luther posts his thesis, etc., etc., and that's the beginning of the Protestant revolt. And then 2000, which is now. Right. So with these key dates, you can you should be able to orient yourself a little bit when you read the history of the church. Fortunately, now there are some books. There are some books that that are coming up that explain the history very well. Right. For example, this is one of them. This is called Triumph. The title is Triumph, the Power and the Glory of the Catholic Church, by H.W. Crocker. You may be interested in that. Okay. There's another one, which I only have an electronic copy of it. There's another one that's very good also. It is called How the Catholic Church Built Western Civilization. This book is very good, and I will mention later why it's very good. By Thomas E. Woods. Thomas E. Woods. And Thomas Woods, he has also some lectures in YouTube that you can look up. So Thomas E. Woods, and then Catholic Church Builder of Civilization. That's what it says. Catholic Church Builder of Civilization. Okay, so that's one thing, a kind of introduction. Then here I printed this out for you. This is from a website in the United States. It just gives you an idea of the timeline, right? So if you look at that chart, you will see how when the church began, and then people who thought differently from the church, the heresies, etc. And you see there also when the Eastern Church separated, 1054, you'll see there. In the main line you can see it, 1054. That's a key date. And then 1517, you will also see it there. Martin Luther. Yeah. So these are key dates to remember. Okay. Now, going to the outline, our outline on the web, we divided it into point number two is the ancient church up to the fall of the Roman Empire. And then if you have that, please, in the web. And then number three is the Middle Ages, from 476 to 1492. And it's around the 15th century. And then we have the modern age, 1492 to 1789, the beginning of the French Revolution. We are not going to take all of this because we don't have time for it, but I'm just going to mention little things that hopefully will arouse your interest to read a little bit more. Okay. Well, just let's begin with the beginning, right? I think that's fair enough, right? So we know that from the very beginning, after the church was founded by Jesus Christ, Christianity spread under the guidance of St. Peter and the apostles, and afterwards their successors, the Pope and the bishops. So there is a record of these popes from St. Peter all the way to Pope Francis. And if you go to Rome, in the Basilica of St. Paul, all their not photos, all their paintings are there of these popes. So at the beginning of the 4th century, Christians comprised 15% of the population of the empire and were concentrated in the cities and in the empire's eastern portion. But the new religion also reached Armenia, Arabia, Ethiopia, Persia, and India. Who brought their religion there? Priests? No, ordinary people. So you see, when somebody got converted, when somebody got baptized, well, usually these people, they were not really important people, but many of them were businessmen, or what you call now businessmen. People who traveled, they traded, etc. So in going around, they came in contact with other people, and in doing their work, they also transmitted their faith. They got them interested in the faith. So this is how the faith spread. So the early missionaries, you could say, in the church were ordinary people. Ordinary people. Most of the spreading of Christianity